Sometimes there's things in the closet that aren't brought out, and irrespective of the diligence that anybody does on a company, buyers, or sellers I should say, will sometimes tell you what they think you should hear as opposed to what you need to know. And we've been surprised different times when, not long after the acquisition, something will come up, and when we ask the seller, why didn't this come up beforehand, he or she would say, well, I was afraid that would squelch the deal. Well, then you almost have to retrade things. You have to not start from scratch, but you have to go back to what's fair to the buyer who now has a situation that he or she didn't expect, and how could the seller be made whole. And that's happened a few times where, back to the psychology side of things, you want to keep people engaged. You don't want things thrown at each other, figuratively speaking, we'll say, but you want to make sure that it's a lot of time, effort, and energy that's taken by everybody to get to this point. Where can we go from here? And that really goes back to communication, being open and honest. Time is the great killer of deals, and the longer it takes, the more of a chance that the transaction will just never take place. And after a while, you get kind of deal tired, and there's other terms you can give to that, but there's situations where people will reach a certain plateau, and an individual realize that he or she's not going to be in charge on a going forward basis. He or she's going to have to make some tough decisions after, and come to terms that after the business is sold, he or she won't be calling the shots, nor will the people he's relied on. They may not be there going forward, and there's a whole change to the dynamics that a family unit, as many businesses are, is going to change dramatically. And once some business owners who are thinking of selling can't go beyond that, and they don't want to address that. They don't want to let the people down that they've been employing, and they will stop it there. So it's an issue of not having control of who's going to do what and when, and who's going to even be employed. Not so much surprises in terms of the product offered or the services offered. Those generally get a pretty good run through in a due diligence process. It's more the kind of the fringe things that people don't expect to happen. Dealmakers would try to address that very, very early on, but it's not until people get there do they realize that sometimes the advisors are not the right advisors. The accounting advisors or the legal advisors are not equipped or not experienced to deal with everything, and a hole occurs, and a situation that's really tough to deal with. And if the advisors aren't equipped to deal with those, that could really squelch a deal also. And a number of years ago, I drove 6 hours up to central Michigan in a snowstorm that was death-defying. We get to the meeting. The business owner is ready to sell. I'm representing the buyer. Things are going along. And not to pick on any particular profession, but the young attorney had never been through this. And as we start down the path of discussion, probably one paragraph into the discussion, this young guy throws his pad on the table, says, "That's a deal breaker. We're not going to go there," gets up and walks out of the room. It surprised the person he was advising as much as it surprised me. We had a redo. We started it again. We were discussing for 10 to 15 minutes other facets of the transaction. This person did it again. I'd never had that before. Now I've had it twice in a half an hour. And I thought, I don't want to get on the road again for another 6 hours of driving through a snowstorm. I'm going to find a Holiday Inn before I drive back down to Cleveland. With that going, we settled it down. We came back in. And a third time, about 15 to 20 minutes after that, this person started into that until the guy who hired him basically grabbed him, sat him down, and said, "Don't do it again. We're going to get this transaction done." So that was an interesting lesson in reading somebody and kind of letting him go down a path that he was going to go down. I was hoping it would end up like that. Otherwise, I would have gone off and just driven back to Cleveland, and that would have been that for the situation and the transaction. But again, reading people and understanding where it's coming from. He was trying to show his client how much he knew about things and how he, not the client, had to be in control of everything. And it's not a control game, it's everybody working together.